Well, General Motors has now famously shut down or idled one of its plants in Ohio. Really, the first time we've seen a major plant closing since Donald Trump became president. We've become accustomed to jobs being created in the manufacturing sector. Trump reacted with harsh condemnation, shaming the head of GM. And this all begs the question, when is it appropriate for the government to intervene with private or publicly held businesses for the sake of saving jobs? And to what degree we should attempt to save jobs made obsolete by new technologies? And joining us to continue their widely read two-part debate on LibertyNation.com entitled, Is Tech Killing Jobs? Are managing editor Mark Angelides and economics correspondent Andrew Moran. Welcome to both of you. And Andrew, let's start with you. GM idled its plant that makes the Chevy Cruze, a vehicle that has obviously failed to attract car buyers. It's been a bust. Why should the president not try to save the thousands of jobs that are lost there by at least putting public pressure on Mary Barra, the president of GM?
Well, we have to remember a decade ago, GM and the other big automakers, they went to Washington, they went to Ottawa, they went to Queen's Park in Ontario, and they still asked for a bailout. So you're having the exact same situation again. What would prevent GM from taking government money and then shutting down again in a few years? But you can't really fault General Motors for shutting down. I mean, market dynamics change. You know, the markets don't stagnate. There was a shifting demand for these vehicles, and now they're shifting towards electric vehicles and autonomous cars. And so they have completely different business models. But to condemn GM for making a sound business move, you know, it was a realistic one. You shouldn't fault them for that. Just don't give them any subsidies, don't give them any bailouts, and let the market dictate which companies survive and which ones falter.
Okay, fair enough. Now, Mark, as Andrew wrote in your debate on LibertyNation.com, you appear to favor government intervention to save the jobs, particularly of high school educated young men. For all the flack that you give social justice warriors and central planners, this is a strange position to take, Andrew writes. Explain why he's wrong.
Yeah, actually, that's not really my position. I don't believe that there should be any government intervention. I quite agree with Andrew that the idea that the government should step in and help out a company that's basically not following where the market leads. I think I can't really disagree with him on that. My disagreement occurred that we should be looking at, for example, new innovations as the way of the future. So companies are putting their lock, stock, and barrel on the idea of specifically driverless cars, driverless vehicles. That's where this came from. They're moving their funding and their focus into automated trucking jobs and things. But this will be trucks without drivers, and that was where my argument was with that. This is an untested field, and you're essentially sacrificing this generation and the next, because of course, you know, parents got to pay for the kids to go to college in America, on the altar of well, eventually all prices will end up being lower. So it's good that it doesn't matter that they lose their jobs and have to take lower wages, because prices will be lower in the future, because it's an untested position. We don't know that in terms of electric cars.
We continue with Andrew Moran and Mark Angelides of LibertyNation.com debating whether tech is killing jobs. And gentlemen, I want to get a little bit more into driverless cars here and the issue of whether computers or humans are better equipped to provide safety for passengers. Andrew, you first. Which is safer to rely on, humans or artificial intelligence?
Well, if you come to Toronto during rush hour, you'll definitely determine that technology is far better drivers than human beings. But the research is clear on this. The research has shown that, for the most part, AI does a reasonable job driving vehicles without a human behind the wheel. It's whenever accidents take place, it's usually the fault of the human being, not the driver of this car. And if you wanted to use that case too about which is more trustworthy, then then why don't you put forward a ban on human drivers, because humans have what, a million accidents a year, 90 people die on U.S. roads every single day. So why isn't our politicians submitting a bill saying we have to protect human beings from themselves? So let's just ban all cars on the road. And one other thing I'd like to point to Mark's previous point when he says that AI is untested. Electricity, when electricity was invented, it was untested too. But did you want candle makers to be a protected class? Did you want to bail us for candle makers? What about the automobile? That was untested, and there wasn't a call for horse and buggy bailouts, or perhaps it was by the progressive politician, or same thing with the refrigerator. So things are untested, but with AI, they're perfecting it. It's getting better. You see it every single time with collision rates are 1% of these thousands of tests. So great job, AI, and I'll take a robot over a human driver.
Okay, now Mark, Andrew seems to be making the argument about the future versus the present. Him looking more to the future, you more to the present. How do you weigh in on human versus artificial intelligence when it comes to safety in cars?
Okay, well, there's a few things to unwrap in Andrew's points there. Say whether you should trust a human driver or an AI driver. The way I like to think about this as a test is, if you have the best piece of AI, it's all set up with all the whistles and bells, and you don't tell it that you're going to throw it a ball, will it catch the ball? The answer is no. They have actually tried something similar with this. And no, it can't catch a ball, which means that it can't react to a situation it's not been prepared for. Now, how do you get AI prepared for a situation? Well, you have a bunch of human programmers. So those human programmers who are preparing it for being able to, as they say, learn, which isn't technically learning in the traditional sense that we understand it as humans, but you have AI. And it's set up to certain parameters, so it will essentially always be, even though they're doing it, trying to work with quantum computing now, it's 0 or 1. But now it's saying it's, with quantum computers, it's 0 and 0, or 0 or 1 and 1 at the same time that they're computing. But essentially, it's do this, then this, and that's always the way it's going to be, because it can't react in any other way, because it's been programmed by human beings. So if people, for example, an electric car will never be able to figure out what to do if somebody is maliciously trying to destroy that car while it's driving. I mean, there are a million different ways a human could do it. How can it react? Well, it can't. That's the thing. They can't react in the same way that a human can react.
Well, that's the crux of the matter here, is which responds more efficiently to a crisis situation. But we're almost out of time. Lightning round, gentlemen. Quick answers, please. Andrew, you discuss Luddites in your series with Mark, people who oppose new technologies. Is Mark a Luddite? And what's wrong with defending tradition and saving jobs in the process?
Since Mark is my editor, I will not say anything bad about him. I don't want to red marks of death in my pieces. But no, as I explained in our original debate, this is a lump of labor fallacy. The idea that there's a fixed number of jobs and amount of work in the economy. Industries change. Silicon Valley employs tens of thousands of people, but it's going to be wiped out eventually in the future. Mark Perry, an economist, he made a great point on Twitter recently. He said, whale oil, people were worried about energy sources in the 1880s, but then crude oil came. Who knows what the future has in store when it comes to energy? So let's not subsidize. Let's not send tax dollars to anybody. Let the market see what the future has in store. The market is always providing us with endless goods. Let's be happy. Let's be content and celebrate innovation.
Okay, Mark, now you write that Andrew and other pure libertarian economic thinkers fail to account for the human cost of technological progress. Are you saying Andrew is heartless?
Of course not. Of course not. He's a good family man. But I'm not opposed to technology and innovation at all. I'm just opposed to driverless cars. That's a very keen distinction. I think that's a bad idea for two reasons. One, it's a poor idea in general. I mean, if you want to transport people from one place to another, well, there are many other ways other than just automating the tired old car that we've had for 100 years now. This doesn't strike me as a great technological solution. This is just trying to make something a bit different from something that we already have. and the human cost in general. I really believe that there are going to be lots and lots of jobs lost on this. And sure, other jobs will be created. But if you're looking at a guy in his 40s, he's worked most of his adult life in one field, retraining doesn't work. This guy's going to end up taking a lower paying job or an entry level job that doesn't pay the bills, that can't afford to send his grown kids to college. And I think that's a real shame. And we're doing this for, as what I say, is an untested technology that I personally don't agree with.
Considering the state of college, I would say that's a good thing, actually.
You could be right about that.
Okay, well, the debate continues. Thank you, Andrew Moran. Thank you, Mark Angelides. We appreciate it. And when we come back, the Mueller special investigation heats up.